This wasn't something I planned on doing deliberately. It was more like I got on Facebook Marketplace on a whim, as you do, in the middle of the night, and I found one of my dream cars for an insanely good deal in what I thought was pretty good shape. And it wasn't too far away from me. So what did I do? I went ahead and I bought a BMW 850i V12 black on black from California, if you can believe it or not. So this car, it showed up on Marketplace. It's got M parallels, wheels that I love. It's black on black, which I love. The paint is immaculate. Like, I know you're not gonna see too well on the GoPro, but trust me, this thing shines. It's not perfect. I'm gonna give it to my detailer friend, and I'm gonna help him work the whole thing over. And once we've repainted a couple of things that are paint chipped, we might actually ceramic coat it, which would be super cool just to preserve this original paint on this thing. But what ended up happening was I reallocated some funds and just went ahead and bought the thing because it was such a great deal. I mean, how can you pass up buying one of your dream cars when it pops up into your feed for an obscenely low amount of money? So, as you may have heard, there are some fans running in the background. That's because we've already developed a pretty catastrophic problem with the car. I went ahead and I filled it up with gas on my way here after picking it up, and the garage started just reeking of gasoline. And I thought, it was running a bit rich. I had to unplug the O2 sensors to get it to run half decent because I scanned it with a super old scan tool and it had an O2 sensor error. So we unplugged them and it started running pretty decently. So I thought, well, I'll just leave this until I can get some O2 sensors. That wasn't the problem. I looked underneath the car and it was just actively dripping gas in massive quantities. So we've got a pan underneath the car right now, and I'm venting the garage because the whole house reeks of gasoline now. So apart from that, let me give you a quick little run through. Please excuse the cramped and overladen with junk garage that we're in right now, but this is all I've got. First of all, the car is very clean overall. I've already said that. It was a California car. It was originally sold in California in 1991. In 2018, it was purchased by the guy that I purchased it from and moved to Missouri. So it lived in Missouri for about a year or so, and then I purchased it and brought it back here to Kansas. So what's going on with this car? Well, it has been looked over fairly well in some aspects, and in other aspects it's been let go. So we've got little things like the grills are popping out. So like this grill is about to fall out of its face. This grill's broken, so I'm probably going to have to see if I can find new grills. I'm not sure how easy that's going to be. The roundels are in pretty good shape. Overall, like, everything is in really good shape. I haven't found a dent on this car so far. The paint is all really good. You've got your normal rock chips in the nose panel. You got rock chips in the mirrors. Pretty normal stuff. The wheels, unfortunately, are super hashed. I'll give you a good close-up here. So the clear coat is coming off. This hole is full of rust. The clear coat is in really, really bad shape, and every wheel is the same. I didn't realize that in the pictures, and I didn't think to ask the guy, oddly, when I was talking to him on Facebook Marketplace, but the wheels are going to need refinishing. I'm not sure if I will refinish them or if I'll buy another set of M parallels, because I do have a guy locally that has a good clean set. The tires are dry rotted pretty badly front and back, so it's going to need tires. Good news is brakes work good, the body's in good shape, and the interior is in immaculate shape. Moving into the car, one of the first things I noticed is the door handles are a little bit hashed. So like this outer trim piece is completely loose, and the whole door handle itself is actually loose. You can see the lock cylinder moves. I think the bolts inside actually might be loose, but then I also noticed there is no gasket material in between the door handle and the door. So that will have to be fixed. I know the gaskets are actually pretty cheap. At least I expect they will be, because they look just like E36 door handles. Moving inside, we have these sweet dual-tone seat belts that look really nice. They're gray with black on the outsides. Our seats are actually in really good shape, normal bolster wear, nothing insane there. Door panels are in good shape. The only problem with the door panels are, number one, we've got these weird little security door LEDs. They're kind of annoying, but they're very 90s looking, so I don't mind them that much so far. And then the big eyesore is we have these tweeters drilled into the doors, cut into the leather or vinyl, whatever this is. If you get a good look at the trim around here, it looks like shit, honestly. So really the only plan moving forward with those that I have so far is to get a tweeter with a bigger bezel to cover up how poorly they cut this out, because you can see the fabric is kind of like shrunken away from the tweeter. I'm sure they cut it properly originally, but that was probably done in the 90s, and the sun took its toll and the vinyl is kind of shrunken away from there. But the windows all work, the mirrors work, the door handles are incredibly tight on the interior. The vents are all in good shape. The door seals, only the driver's door seal is damaged. You can see right here we've got, the normal wear and tear, just like my E36. This lower door seal is torn. But thankfully you can still get these new. They're atrociously expensive, but I think this car is worth it. I'm probably going to just go ahead and replace these if need be. The steering wheel is in immaculate shape for a 90s car. You've got a little bit of fading on the top, but it's not torn anywhere. It's in much better shape than my E36 was when I got it. The car's got about 128,000 miles on it. Not super high mileage, especially for a V12. They do last forever. The carpets are in okay shape. They're dirty. I have not vacuumed this car out. I just bought it yesterday. I have only had it for about 24 hours now. So the carpets are going to be steam cleaned, or vacuumed and then steam cleaned and shampooed. We'll see how clean we can get them, and then I'll see if I can get some good floor mats. The climate control temperature sensor and trim piece is actually missing from my dash, which is a little bit weird. The onboard computer, the OBD, is actually in pretty good shape. It still displays faults. We had some taillights out when I got the car. I had to replace 3 bulbs, went away. Windshield wiper fluid is low, so that message is still displaying right now. It does have a few dead pixels. I can show you a video of that later. So there is thankfully a website online that actually restores these things, so I will probably send that in to get the pixels replaced, just to get this thing looking cherry. We do have a couple of lights out in the dash, in the main cluster down here in like the little air panel. I will have to get those replaced. Not a big deal at all. What else do we have? We went ahead and we actually installed the factory radio into this car. It had a Blaupunkt in it, which I just have shoved into the trunk right now. But I thought the factory radio just looked much better. The Blaupunkt was like sticking out of the dash like an inch, and it didn't work. We had to take it out of the dash and like fumble around with the wires, and then it just started randomly working. So it was obviously a botched job. So we went ahead and put the factory radio back in. It does require the code. When you turn it on, it just says code because, they don't want you stealing 1991 radios and selling them on eBay. So I will have to call the dealership and see if I can get the code for this thing. Hopefully this is the original radio and I can just get the code based on my VIN and actually get this radio working and get some sweet tape deck action going on. The HVAC so far does work. We're in the dead of winter. I don't know if the AC is going to work, but the heater works perfectly. This is your blower control right here, and then you've got climate control, temperature on either side. I just have them both set to max heat, and then you got your vents, auto, defrost, whatnot. Moving on, we've got the shifter. The shifter knob itself is super loose, like it feels like it's broken or something inside of there. Like maybe there's a bushing in there that I can replace for now just to get this working. Like you can see it swivels around, it looks like shit. These do all illuminate when you turn the car on, and they tell you what gear you're in, but it kind of looks like something's amiss in here. Right now, I'm not too worried about all of this stuff because ultimately the plan is to manual swap this car. I have a lead on a 6-speed. Well, I should say I know somebody with a 6-speed that will work for this car with a bell housing adapter and a few other things, a few other bits and bobs, and we're going to try to manual swap this thing eventually. As you can see, the seats are in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of just, dirt and junk on them that needs to be cleaned off. We've got some like dust and grime in the cracks. Like I said, I'm going to get this detailed by my friend. I'm going to help him detail it, and we're going to go through the whole thing, get it as clean as we can. The dash has pretty minimal warpage. Like, there's a little bit going on here. I'm not worried about that. There's no cracks in the dash. It's all in really good shape. Another thing is we've got these GPS sensors in either corner of the dash. You can see the other one right there. And then we've got a little microphone here for the aftermarket blow pump that was installed. The pillars, the B pillars and C pillars, are damaged and they are held in with screws. So I'm going to have to fix that. I'm not sure if I will be repairing these panels or if I'm going to be trying to buy replacements. I will 3D print them if I can find files or create files for them. I could print them in multiple sections and glue them together. We'll see what we have to do there. Over on the other side, glove box has a little bit of warpage. It's pretty minimal. I'm not too worried about it. The eagle-eyed viewers among you may have noticed that the rearview mirror is missing. Now, if you look really closely there, there's also a piece of glass missing from the windshield. So, the first test drive I took on it, we had already hauled it back to my friend's house. We kept it at my friend's house for the first night. And we, did a few rounds of hard acceleration, and the first time I punched it, the whole rear view mirror just ripped off of the windshield. That's how much torque these V12s make. But no, seriously, the rear view mirror just popped off. I've got it sitting here in the glove box. The nub is sitting right here, right. The nub is right. The nub is right here. You can see that there's that little piece of glass still stuck in it. That's some serious epoxy that this thing had. I don't know how it was able to tear glass out of a windshield, but I'm just going to epoxy this back in, let it sit for a really long time, and then we'll reinstall the mirror. Not a big deal. The secondary glove box, looks like you might expect. I am missing the flashlight, so I might steal a flashlight from my M3. I'm not sure what I'm going to do on that yet. We've got some old registration papers. We've got an old dated keyless entry thing. I don't know if I can get keyless entry working on this car. I really hope I can. That would be really nice. We've got some little fasteners and speed clips in a bag. Over here on this door panel, we have the same problem, the same hideous tweeter, the same little LED light indicator, security indicator. Otherwise, that door panel is just as clean as the driver's side. Looks great. Now, I already threw it away. I kind of wish I hadn't so that I could show you guys. But this center console had this hideous armrest installed into this pocket here. And it was obviously a homemade unit. It was made out of particle board. Like people make sub boxes and like stereo enclosures out of for trunks. It had to weigh like 15 pounds. So it just had this thing, it had a male part that went into here, and then it was this big gross armrest. I kind of thought it was factory at first because it was wrapped in leather, and it had a acrylic panel underneath the top armrest, and then there was a big LED disc inside that would light up this acrylic thing. So it had like this red line going all around the armrest. It was the weirdest thing. So it was obviously just a weird, gross, homemade thing. So we ripped it out and threw it away. It had a wire coming out of here that was being powered off of the cigarette lighter, I think. I don't remember. My friend actually was the one that removed it. I think it was powered off of the cigarette lighter here. But anyway, that's gone. And we went ahead and removed the Blaupunkt gross 2000s radio that was in there. If you look over at this B pillar, you can see it's got the same kind of damage that the driver's side one does. The headliner, if I haven't mentioned it already, has been rewrapped. So this is just like some Joanne fabric looking gray stuff. You can see that it does not match the sunroof panel at all. I think this is probably original. What I think I'm going to do is rewrap this in Alcantara. I'm going to move into the back a little bit now. The rear seats are, again, in pretty immaculate shape. This rear center console is in really good shape. The rear door panels are in great shape. The one problem back here is the first aid kit is missing, and the first aid kit trim is actually broken. You can see over here on the right side, it's cracked, and down here it actually doesn't match up. It's all messed up. And then finally, the rear parcel deck is faded to purple, like all of these 90s BMWs did. So I'm going to have to take the rear parcel deck out at some point and paint it. which I've done on every 90s BMW I've ever had. I just paint it black with fabric paint, and it looks amazing. You can't tell the difference. Always comes out great, and then it won't ever fade again. Now, one last thing is the C-pillars. The C-pillars, as I said earlier, are held in by screws. On either side, they are held in by screws. So, I'm going to have to take those pillars out at some point. I may rewrap them when I rewrap the headliner, but it just looks like shit to have these gross self-tapping tech screws holding these things in. I'm sure the tabs are broken, but I'm also sure that there was a better way to do that without driving self-tapping screws into a $100,000 BMW. And that's about it for the interior. I'm sorry the lighting I'm using right now is really shitty. I'm literally just using my little pocket light that I use at work every day. But I'm using what I got. Let's talk a little bit about the exterior now. Now, one of the first things you may notice is this car is obviously tinted. It's got a really poorly done tint job. It's peeling right here. If you can see that in the light, there's this line that kind of runs all along here. It's the tint just peeling off. Luckily, there are no actual like scratches or anything, any actual damage to the glass. You can see my reflection really well because it's so dark. I think I'm just going to do ceramic 50% tint. It doesn't look too dark or too light. It's just like a really nice balance. Another thing you'll notice out here, when you're standing in front of the car, you can see the faded, yellowed headliner, and it looks disgusting. So those are probably going to have to be redone in black. The wipers are shit because the car's been sitting for about 9 years now. It's been sitting since 2011. Okay. One of the biggest things about the interior is something that is apparently quite typical to the 8 Series. The sunroof panel, and only the sunroof panel, is experiencing pretty extreme rust. So, a neighboring shop to the shop that I work at specializes in paint, so I will more than likely be taking this to them to be rust repaired and then repainted in BMW Schwartz just to match the rest of the car, then put a new seal on it and put it back in the car, and then afterwards ceramic coat it. One thing we found in the trunk, we're talking about exterior, but this kind of goes hand in hand. We found in the trunk fuse box that the rear defrost fuse is blown. It was also the wrong amperage, but when we took the fuse out, the fuse holder looked a little bit melted. We decided just to not put a good fuse back in there for now in case there is a short with the rear defrost. Hopefully there is not. Now, since we're on the subject of the exterior, let's talk about our lighting. Now, the tail lights are wrapped in a very, very dark tint. Super fly for the 2000s, not fly for a modern classic. So one of the big things that I'm going to want to do right off the bat is get rid of this tint off of the taillights. Thankfully, it is not nightshade. It is actually like window tint type stuff. So we'll just hit this with a steam gun or a heat gun and get it pulled off, and then we'll get the headlights, and then we'll get the taillights buffed if they need it to bring some shine back out of them. On that note, let's run up to the front real quick. And you'll see that the corner lights have the same treatment. We've got a lot of salt and snow up here, but our corner lights, our driving lights, and our blinkers are wrapped in a similar tint. So that's going to need to be peeled off. I think probably what I'm going to do, if they're up to it, when I take the car in to get the interior tint pulled off, I will see if they'll just pull the tint off of the lights at the same time. That would be really convenient. Hopefully they wouldn't charge me too much more to do that. I just hate dealing with stuff like that. I would rather deal with mechanics. I am a mechanic. Let's go into the trunk for a little bit. Reach underneath. Got a little latch right there. Our trunk is full of junk right now. It's got 2 new batteries in it, at least fairly new. They're actually interstate batteries, so they ought to hold up pretty well. And they're bolted down with regular battery hold downs, and the car starts every time, so not too worried about those right now. I'm just going to keep them on a tender because 2 batteries is pretty expensive to replace. The trunk is just as dirty as the interior. It's covered in grass, clippings, and junk. I'm going to go through it again, give it a good vacuum, good steam clean, and ought to be good. The toolkit is missing several items. If we get in here, we're missing, so we have an oil filter wrench tool, which is pretty cool. We've got the big wrench, the little wrench, not the medium wrench. We've got an Allen wrench. We're missing whatever goes here. We're missing the tire iron. We're missing the tow hook. And over here we've got the multiple bit screwdriver, whatever the heck this thing is, and then the channel lock pliers. And for some reason, 3 BMW center caps. And then I think there should be a reflector here. We're also missing the jack for the car. The jack should be behind this panel right here. You can see the sticker, the decal right here that says that the jack's back there. It is not. And that's about it for the trunk. Oh, one more thing, real quick. So if you look back here, you can see there's a little red wire peeking out. We pull this panel down. Whoops, screw pops completely out apparently. Pull this panel down, and we have this big gross aftermarket amp. Yeah, apparently it's a badass motherfucker, 1200 watt. It's got the big fuse thing. So I think what I'm going to do is get rid of that, put the factory amp back in, because I was given the factory amp right over there with the car and the factory CD changer. So my plan is just to put the car back to stock for now, replace speakers if need be. I'm not a big stereo guy. So here's the other side of the car. Nothing special to note over here. Again, I haven't found a dent in the whole car. I'm sure there is one or two somewhere. But like none of the seals are super dry rotted. Everything's pretty okay looking. You're gonna see a lot of this white stuff because somebody buffed the car before I came to see it, and they didn't clean up after themselves. So there's just this white shit like everywhere, like on the windows. You can see like I can kind of rub this crap off. There's just this white, it's like wax or something that's just all over the car. This door handle is not loose and damaged like the other side. It's nice and tight. I actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't see much of a seal in this one. Yeah, the seal's actually pretty perished in this one as well. So I might see if I can just get new door handles and new seals for both sides. That would look really nice. Here's a little bit more of the rust on the sunroof. It's very, very rusty, so this whole panel will have to be rust repaired and gone through.